The courtroom was silent, too silent. The only sound was the faint hum of the ceiling fan and the echo of a gavel that had just struck moments ago. Everyone thought it was over. The case, the drama, the long, painful divorce that had stretched over 8 exhausting months, but no one expected what was about to happen next. When the judge leaned forward, adjusted his glasses, and said, "Before we conclude, there's something this court needs to address," the entire room froze. Mark Reynolds felt his heart stop. He had already stood up, ready to walk away from the life he once built with his wife, Claire. The divorce papers were signed, the settlement agreed upon, and the lawyers had packed up their files. But that one sentence from the judge changed everything. The courtroom in downtown Chicago was packed that morning. Reporters sat in the back, whispering among themselves. This wasn't just another divorce. It had become a local story. Mark Reynolds, a successful architect, and Claire Reynolds, a well-known psychologist, were once considered a power couple. Together they had built a life most people envied, a beautiful house, luxury cars, and a picture-perfect family. But behind the smiles, there had been tension, betrayal, and something darker. The divorce was supposed to end it all, to split their assets and silence the secrets that had been eating away at them. Mark looked across the courtroom at Claire. Her face was unreadable, calm, almost too calm. Her lawyer whispered something in her ear, and she simply nodded. He had loved that nod once. It used to mean she trusted him. Now it meant nothing. Mark wasn't the kind of man people expected to break down. Tall, confident, composed, he was the face of success. But today he looked exhausted. The divorce had taken everything from him: his savings, his peace, and his reputation. Claire, on the other hand, looked as if she had already moved on. Her navy blue suit was sharp and elegant, her expression detached. But deep in her eyes there was something. Guilt. Maybe, or fear. The judge, an older man named Harold Briggs, had presided over hundreds of divorce cases, but something about this one didn't sit right with him. He wasn't done. "Not yet!" Hidden truth. Judge Briggs cleared his throat. "Before we finalize this case, I need clarification regarding the Reynolds' minor child, Evan." A wave of tension rippled across the courtroom. Mark's head snapped up. Evan, their 8-year-old son, was the only thing they both still cared about. The custody battle had already been settled. Claire was to have full custody, with Mark allowed weekend visits. It wasn't what he wanted, but he had accepted it. "What about Evan, Your Honor?" Mark's lawyer, David Collins, asked. The judge looked down at the papers on his desk. "This court received new information early this morning. Something that may affect custody arrangements." Mark frowned. "What information?" The judge hesitated, looking at both of them. "A letter, Mr. Reynolds, sent anonymously. It includes evidence suggesting that Mrs. Reynolds may have misled the court." Claire's face went pale. Her lawyer stood quickly. "Objection, Your Honor. That letter has not been verified." The judge raised a hand. "I am aware of that, Counselor. But the contents are concerning." He slid a paper toward the clerk, who handed copies to both lawyers. Mark took his copy and read it. His hands started to shake. It was a printed email from Claire's personal account, sent to someone named Dr. Harris, dated 3 months ago. The message read, "If Mark finds out Evan isn't his biological son, he'll destroy me. I just need this divorce over with before he learns the truth." The room erupted in whispers. Claire's lawyer stood and demanded a recess, but Judge Briggs refused. "Mrs. Reynolds," he said firmly, "do you deny writing this email?" Claire's lips parted, but no words came out. "Answer the question," the judge repeated. She began, voice trembling. "I don't remember sending that." Mark stared at her, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Claire, what is this?" "It's not what it looks like," she whispered. "Oh, it looks exactly what it looks like," Mark snapped. "Tell me it's not true. Tell me Evan is my son." Tears welled up in Claire's eyes. The courtroom had turned into a storm of murmurs, tension thick enough to choke on. "Your Honor," her lawyer said, "this is private and irrelevant to property settlement." The judge shook his head. "It is not irrelevant when a child's parentage is in question. This court demands honesty." Mark's lawyer leaned in. "Your Honor, we request a DNA test." The judge nodded slowly. "Granted." Emotional breakdown. Claire finally broke down. She covered her face, sobbing into her hands. "I never wanted it to come out like this." Mark's voice cracked. "Then it's true?" She looked up, eyes red and swollen. "It was one mistake. Years ago. You were always busy, always working. I was lonely, and I thought—" He stepped back as if she had struck him. "You thought what?" "That you could lie to me for 8 years. The entire courtroom was silent except for Claire's sobs. Even the judge looked heavy-hearted. "I was going to tell you after the divorce," she whispered. "I didn't want Evan to lose you." Mark's anger melted into heartbreak. Lose me? You already took him from me, Claire. You just made sure I'd never look at him the same way again. The hidden truth revealed. 2 weeks later, the DNA test results came in. Evan wasn't Mark's biological son. When the court reconvened, Mark didn't look at Claire. He didn't even sit beside his lawyer. He stood alone. Judge Briggs spoke softly. Mr. Reynolds, the test confirms Mrs. Reynolds' statement. However, the court recognizes that you have been Evan's father in every sense that matters. Mark's voice was quiet but steady. Your Honor, I don't care what the paper says. He's my son. He always will be. The courtroom fell silent again, but this time it wasn't out of shock. It was out of respect. Claire began to cry once more, realizing she had lost everything that truly mattered. When the hearing ended, the judge called them both to stay behind. I've seen hundreds of divorces, he said quietly. Most end in bitterness. But I'll say this. Sometimes the law and love don't align. Mr. Reynolds, you showed this court that being a parent is about heart, not blood. Mark nodded, eyes wet but calm. He walked out of the courtroom without looking back. For the first time in months, he felt both broken and free. Claire stood frozen, the sound of her own heartbeat echoing in her ears. The world she had built on lies had finally crumbled. Outside, reporters tried to get a statement from Mark. He stopped for a moment, his voice quiet but firm. Justice doesn't always fix everything, he said. Sometimes it just shows you who you really are. He got into his car and drove away, not toward his office or his new apartment, but to the school where Evan was waiting. When the boys saw him, he ran up and hugged him tight. Dad, you came. Mark smiled faintly and hugged him back. Of course I did. I'll always come, kiddo. He didn't tell Evan the truth. Some truths, he decided, were meant to protect, not destroy. Weeks later, as Claire packed her things from the house, she found a letter in the drawer of Mark's old study. It wasn't angry. It wasn't bitter. It said, I forgive you, but I'll never forget how silence turned into lies. Tell Evan he's loved. That's all that matters now. She folded the letter and held it to her chest, tears streaming down her face. Just then, her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. You think the truth is over? You still owe me. Her hands trembled. She looked around the empty house, her heart pounding. Maybe the divorce wasn't the end after all. Maybe it was just the beginning. Truth always finds a way to surface, even when you think it's buried beneath love, lies, and the law.